In this episode of ZoomerLife.
My wish for all of us here is that we all become champions of death, that we really embrace it, that we give ourselves the gift of holding it close, near and dear, so we can live a full and passionate life.
ZoomerLife. Health, wellness, and longevity from the world's brightest minds.
So seeing that we devoted this morning to hearing from speakers who offered up some tips for living better, I thought it would be appropriate to carry on in this group of speakers with some tips for how we can die better. Not the most rousing subject, I know, but the liveliest speaker that I've ever run across about the business of dying is Stephen Garret. Actually, he exudes such enthusiasm for the prospect that I almost catch myself thinking, hey, that's not a bad idea. Stephen, come up and tell us why the hallmark of a good life would be a good death.
Thank you. Hello. Moses is right. I'm a pretty excited guy about death. As a matter of fact, my next book is called Embrace Your Death, A New Lease on Life. And I gotta tell you, I had a hidden agenda about writing the book, Embrace Your Death. And I was hopeful that the great mystery of God would see me working my butt off to help people die well. And that somehow I would get the only get out of life alive pass in the universe. So my relationship with God is pretty tight. I got an email from God the other day. She sent it down to me. And she said, Stephen, I got some great news for you, honey. And then I got some good news. I said, well, give me the great news first. Well, yeah, she said, your book's going to be successful. It's going to be a #1 bestseller legitimately. And it's going to get translated into many languages. That's the great news. And I said, well, what's the good news? She said, you're going to die rich. So my hope that I would get out of here alive has been shattered. So I had to embrace my very own death and really get that I'm not getting out of here alive. It's over. And when I embrace that feeling of yikes, because it's hard to do, isn't it? I mean, when you think about it, you take a second, you think, oh my God, I'm dying. I'm going to be out of here one of these days. It's hard to let in. But the coolest thing about it is the moment I got that I'm going to be dead, I was free to live. Can you understand that? It's like a coin. It's opposites. If I push my death away and deny it, and I'm afraid of it, by simple physics, I'm pushing my life away. And I'm afraid of it. I won't live fully just in case I die. Why don't we get this idea as a culture, as a generation, that we could teach each other how to die really well?
Get the latest ZoomerLife news, presenter information, and watch streaming video at www.zoomerlifeconference.ca. ZoomerLife. Health, wellness, and longevity from the world's brightest minds.
So I thought about this whole thing, and I read a study by our recently retired Senator Sharon Carstairs. And she said, our country is the most death-denying country on the planet. I thought, oh my God, where did that come from? Now, we're in a church, and some of it is because of our religion and the doctrine of religion. Some of it's because of pictures like the Grim Reaper. Some of it's because of TV shows like CSI. We're well trained about being frightened about death. But I took a look at it in a different way. Do you know that back in 1851, 87% of our population lived on the farms? Well, what's common in the farms? Nature, cycle of life, birth and death, planting seeds, harvesting seeds, having animals born, having the animals slaughtered. In 1951, 100 years later, 46% of us lived on the farms. More of us lived in the cities. In 2006, 20% of us live rurally. 80% of us are living urbanly. We're in a digital world which is opposite to the natural world. We're just out of practice with it. We don't see death anymore. We don't experience it. It's now almost a pathology. You saw the doctors this morning talking about it. It's almost like it's a pathology. You got to go to the hospital to die. So we're out of practice with being around death. For me, as I've started writing this book called Embrace Your Death, there's more life going on in this body than there's been in decades, because I've embraced my death fully. So this notion about let's be afraid of death, let's not talk about it, we need to change. Now, we're the baby boomer generation, most of us, correct? We brought in free love and pot and all kinds of crazy stuff. I got a really cool idea. You know, one of the things I've learned about being around death is that legacy, what we leave behind, is really important. So I've got this notion that this generation of mine, because I'm a Zoomer, I turned 62 about 7 days ago, my wife threw me an amazing party, is why don't we get this idea as a culture, as a generation, that we could teach each other how to die really well. We could teach our children that death is okay. We could teach each other how to plan for it. I got my whole death planned out. I'm going to have a hell of a party before we go. When my father died, Lloyd, what a great guy. He's in a coffin, and there's a hell of a party going on. I mean, what a ripoff. I thought to myself, why would I go? Why would I leave? Why wouldn't I have a party before I died? It's called a living funeral. Write that down, a living funeral. I've got my whole living funeral planned out for myself. I'm playing my music, much to my wife's chagrin. I'm playing the Beatles, Men at Work, the Rolling Stones. I'm going to have my cribbage board there. I'm going to play some crib. I'm going to drink a rum and coke. I'm going to have a hell of a good time. Do you know that 77% of Canadians do not have any plans for their death? That they leave it all to their families? It's crazy. What we can do is we can start to talk with each other about death. I've spoken with my wife. I've spoken with my kids. I'm bringing the conversation about death out of the closet so we can talk about it. We can look at each other. When my father died, thank goodness, we had a conversation about it. He was in a hospital. He was in a bed. Now, my dad loved to play golf. He loved to play cribbage. He loved to have a Jack Daniels with his friends. He's lying in a hospital bed, and he's plugged into all these crazy-ass machines. Up his nose, in his ears, everywhere else. Every hole in his body was full of a tube. He said to me, son, he said, this isn't loving kindness. You're keeping me alive for you guys. And you know what? He was right. He was right. Lloyd was right. The whole family was keeping him alive because we were going to miss him. So I said, Dad, why'd you call? He said, well, son, we got to have a conversation. Oh, I knew what the conversation was going to be. I'm his eldest son. He said, boy, he said, we got to make a change here in the hospital. He said, it's not very good for me here. My buddies, you know, they don't stick around very long. I can't go golfing. I haven't got my glasses, so I can't play crib. And they won't let me have Jack Daniels. I said, why not, Dad? He said, I got to ask the doctor to unplug me. He said, what do you think I should do, son? Go ahead, Pops. If that's what's going to serve you, if that's what's in your deepest heart, I support you 100%. In that moment, speaking with my father, that frankly about death, we felt love for each other. It was so incredible. At the end of the call, he said, you know, who do you think I should phone next? It's the doctor? I said, no, hang on, Dad. Slow it down. You better phone your wife. You better phone your other kids. You better get them involved in the conversation, then call the doctor. And my dad never said I love you to me ever before. It was just his way. He was, you know, a tough army guy. I just didn't do it. But before he hung up the telephone, my father said to me, hang on, son, hang on. I love you. What a gift. I said, Dad, I love you too. When I hung the phone down, I knew I would never see him again. He was going to get unplugged. The next call I got was from my mom at midnight. Your father's dead. But in that conversation about death with my father, I got to see life in its fullest and felt a deep, profound love for my dad. Understand that? It came out of a conversation about death. But if we didn't have the conversation about death, I would never have known how deeply my father loved me. I could walk out of here and get hit by a car. Did I give everything I have to you today? Yes, because I don't know I've got tomorrow. And this is one of the most beautiful things about death, is it reminds me that I've only got today.
Get the latest ZoomerLife news, presenter information, and watch streaming video at www.ZoomerLifeConference.ca. ZoomerLife. Health, wellness, and longevity from the world's brightest minds.
So we have an opportunity as a group of Zoomers to have some great conversations about death and about celebration and about joy and about life. And to talk with our spouses honestly about it. And to hold death as an ally, as a friend, as an inspiration. Most of us wait till tomorrow. How many of you kind of put things off till tomorrow? Just raise your hand so I can see. I'm not the only one here. Get them up a little higher because that's exercise, as some of the doctors said. Great. Most of us delay because we think we have a lot of time. I've got a whole life to live. Do you? I don't know when I'm going out, but because I've got my friend Death sitting on my shoulder right here, chatting at me. I'm here. I'm not quite ready yet, but I could go tomorrow. I could walk out of here and get hit by a car. Did I give everything I have to you today? Yes, because I don't know I've got tomorrow. And this is one of the most beautiful things about death, is it reminds me that I've only got today. This moment to give fully. When my sister Jody died back on May the 5th, 1988 at 6:32 in the evening, it was a Friday night, I'll never forget the feeling in my body that I had. It was, oh shit. My sister Jody died and did not know how much I loved her. She didn't know how much I cared for her. She didn't know how crazy I thought she was, because I never told her, because I thought I had a whole lifetime with her. I held it back. I delayed living fully. I delayed expressing myself fully because I thought I had more time with her. One of the number one complaints people have as they're lying on their deathbed in what's called a pre-grief state is they regret the fact that they didn't give themselves more fully to people in their life, that they held back just a little bit. Number two is they're disappointed because they didn't express the happiness that they really felt in their body. I know that one big time. If I'm really, really happy and others are really, really sad, I kind of feel guilty. But on our deathbeds, people say, I wish I had have expressed my happiness even more fully. I wish I had have lived my own life instead of the life I thought others wanted me to live. These are all lessons from death that I've learned that I'll just share with you guys. Gosh. I'd love it if we would have these conversations regularly with each other. I don't mean at dinner time every night. I don't mean it for it to be somber or heavy, but to talk about these things that are so inspiring. Anybody here afraid to talk about death openly? Please be honest. Just raise your hand so I can see you. Yeah, it's a little bit scary sometimes. How would you say to your son, and I did this last Saturday, Oliver, honey, I got to tell you something. I'm dead in a few years. He said, I know, Dad. And I said, before I go, I want you to check with my wife, Sonora, and I want you to see what role you're going to play in my death celebration. And by the way, honey, I love you, and I'm so proud of you. You're such a fine young man. I didn't want my son to not know what a cool guy he was because I thought I had a few more years to tell him. Is this making sense? So my wish for all of us here, we're a baby boom generation. My wish for all of us here is that we all become champions of death, that we really embrace it, that we give ourselves the gift of holding it close, near and dear, so we can live a full and passionate life. Let's get the idea that we can embrace death as a friend and as an ally.
Get the latest ZoomerLife news, presenter information, and watch streaming video at www.ZoomerLifeConference.ca. ZoomerLife. Health, wellness, and longevity from the world's brightest minds.
I was in Bali a year ago on a tour, and I got invited to go and see a cremation. I thought, oh, that's kind of like, I'm on vacation, I want to go and see a cremation. So I went down anyways, and I thought, my God, they've given me the wrong address. There's a party going on here. They had bands playing, they had a parade, they had barbecues, they had food, and I said to my wife, where are we? This can't be a cremation, but it was. They were celebrating a life lived. And yes, there was sadness. And yes, there was some grief and some sorrow. It's not to deny that at all. But they were celebrating an amazing life that somebody had lived. They had bonfires and fireworks, and that reminds me, honey, could you make sure there's a parade for me? Would you? So that's really all I have to say is, let's get the idea that we can embrace death as a friend and as an ally. And then we can talk about it openly, and we can describe to our doctors and our caregivers and our loved ones and our friends how we'd like to go out. I don't want any drugs. I don't want to be plugged into any machines. As a matter of fact, when I'm going, honey, take me to a forest and point me to the center, will you? And let me walk in there. I want to die with my friends and my family around me. I don't want to be over-medicated. I want to die with a shit-eating grin on my face. You ever seen Pete Rose slide into home plate at the end of a baseball game? He's got that grin on his face. That's how I intend to go out. I'm going to go running full speed ahead for the rest of my life, and when I'm dead, it's like, yes! What a life that was! Holy smokes! Why not? Absolutely. So what I'd like you all to do is get the idea that you're ambassadors of death. I did this at Idea City about 6 months ago. That you're ambassadors of death. Look, nobody in here is getting out alive. Nobody. I checked in history. Nobody has survived death. 57 million deaths a year on this planet. 250,000 deaths in Canada every year. 685 deaths. It's a very common thing. We're not getting out alive. Might as well have some fun with it. Might as well get that it's very real. We don't have to deny it. Let's hold it close. Let's love it in a way. And yeah, we'll miss the person who's dead, but that gives us permission to hold them close when they're alive. For me, one of the symptoms in grief is all the things I wished I had said to Harry. All the things I said to Harry that I think I shouldn't have said. So why don't we do that now, day by day by day, fully get across to our friends and family how much we love them, how crazy they are, how much we hate them, the whole 9 yards. So when they're dying or when I'm dying, we can just celebrate. Wouldn't that be a cool idea? Thank you so much for listening. My book's got a very simple title, Embrace Your Death. It'll be out in the spring of 2012. My website went live today. It's Embrace Your Death. It's very simple. Please come have a look at my website. Thank you for listening. Appreciate it very much.
Stephen, this is what Woody Allen said about embracing his death. He said, "I'm not afraid of dying. I just don't want to be there when it happens."
Thank you, Moses.